What's good, big timers? It's RDL here, and today I'm going to be talking about this movie called Civil Brand. Also, Happy New Year's Eve. I hope y'all had a good 2024. Now, before this video starts, if you have not seen my previous videos, be sure to check them out after this video, and let's get into it. So, starting off, we get introduced to a woman named Sabrina Downs, who is the main narrator of this movie. She tells us the story of her time in prison and everything that went on while she was there. Sabrina has been in and out of prison since she was a teenager. We also get introduced to another woman named Frances Shepard, who is sitting next to Sabrina while on their bus ride to prison. She's pretty shy and quiet when you first meet her. Frances has been convicted for accidentally killing her abusive husband in self-defense. So basically she committed involuntary manslaughter or something like that. She also used to be a nurse and has a little daughter named Maxine that she misses very much. When they finally arrive in prison, they meet Captain Dees. He's very abusive and evil towards the inmates. He tells all the new inmates the rules that they need to follow and the consequence if they don't follow them. Frances gets escorted to her prison cell. We also get introduced to 3 new characters. The first one is Nikki Barnes, who is in prison for the second time for a robbery she committed with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was killed during a shootout with the police, and Nikki ended up getting caught for it. Surprisingly, she actually has 2 kids. You wouldn't even think that she had kids with her tough exterior and all, but yep, she does. The second one is a 17-year-old teenage girl named Lil Mama. She's Frances' cellmate. She's very friendly and bubbly and everything. Everyone in prison likes her. She's also deep into Christianity. Lil Mama is in prison serving a 5-year prison sentence for killing her abusive stepfather, and she's pregnant with a child. The third one is a woman named Wet. She's in prison serving 10 years for shooting a track runner for sleeping with her boyfriend. And the next morning, Frances started her first day of doing hard labor with the other inmates, sewing and making clothes. They call it the sweatshop. A little bit later, they all play volleyball. Meanwhile, we get introduced to a guy named Michael. He's a law student looking for a job so he can pay off his student loans. He meets with Captain Dees in his office to talk to him about hiring him for a job as a correctional officer. They have a conversation and it gets interrupted when Nikki gets into a fight with another inmate named Aisha. Aisha is Captain Dees' secret informer and mistress. Captain Dees immediately hires Michael as a new correctional officer and goes to stop the fight between Nikki and Aisha. Captain Dees asks Frances who started the fight, and she tells him the truth and says it was Aisha who started the fight. The officers take away Aisha for starting the fight, and Captain Dees tells Michael that he is the first and last person that he talks to. He also tells him that he runs the prison and not the warden. A few seconds later, we meet the warden. His name is Nelson. He's pretty corrupt, just like Captain Dees. He exploits the prisoners for profit. Nelson meets Michael and dismisses him so he can start his first day on the job. After Michael left, Nelson and Dees secretly talked about their plans to increase their profit off of the prison. A little bit later, Aisha is sent to Captain Dees' office to discuss the fight she had with Nikki. Captain Dees slaps Aisha and tells her that she's not important. He shows a gift for her, but he doesn't give it to her until she gets more info on the other inmates. Captain Dees turns off the surveillance camera and forces Aisha to perform oral sex on him. After she leaves the office, Aisha finds Frances and slaps her for telling on her. She also steals her necklace and Frances runs away. After Frances runs away, Nikki surprised Aisha from a corner and stabbed her in the stomach. She also took back the necklace that Aisha stole from Frances and left Aisha on the ground screaming for help. After this incident, Michael takes Frances to Captain D's office for questioning on who stabbed Aisha. Frances had no info to give them and she was let go. Later on at night, Captain D's and some other guards entered Nikki's cell and started beating on her for stabbing Aisha. According to Sabrina, Captain D's is secretly in love with Nikki, but she doesn't love him back and he abuses her because of that. On the next day, Michael enters the break room where Captain D's and the other guards are during their lunch break. They talked about how the prison might end up being shut down and were concerned about their jobs. Michael tries to talk about the mistreatment that the female inmates are going through, but Captain D yells at him and justifies the mistreatment because he sees the female inmates nothing more as thieves, murderers, and drug addicts that has zero respect for anything. Captain D leaves the break room to go clean his weapons. Later on at night, Michael starts to do a lot of research on what goes on in the prison system and discovers that the female inmates are being exploited for cheap hard labor. A little bit later, Lil Mama wakes up sick and the other inmates try to call for help, but nobody showed up to do anything. Frances was able to help Lil Mama due to her experience as a nurse. And the next morning, Nikki gave Frances her stolen necklace back as a thank you gift for helping Lil Mama the night before. A little bit later, while working in the sweatshop, Captain Deves gives everybody bad news. Frances was denied her appeal. Nikki's kids won't be able to visit her, and Wet was given a citation for creating a petition to end the harsh working conditions in prison. Aisha also came back from the hospital fully recovered and continued her feud with Nikki. A little bit later, Frances, Nikki, Wet, and Lil Mama got together and snuck into the kitchen for some food and wine. The four of them are friends now. While they were talking, they heard someone coming to the kitchen and got out of there and hid outside of the kitchen. While they were hiding, they witnessed Captain D's plant a small bomb to cause a little explosion in the kitchen. The alarm goes off and Captain D's blames the inmates for the explosion. Because of the explosion, Nelson put the whole entire prison on lockdown until further notice. They couldn't get no phone calls or visits from anybody. Nelson confronts Captain Dees about the explosion and his control over the inmates. He threatens to fire Captain Dees if he continues with side operations. A little bit later, Wet is reading a book and an officer enters her room. He searches her whole room and damages her belongings in the process. Wet tries to get him to stop damaging her stuff and she ends up being put in solitary confinement as a result. A little bit later, Lil Mama is sent to clean Captain D's office, and while she's cleaning, he starts sexually harassing her, and Lil Mama asks if she can leave, and Captain D lets her leave. A little bit later, Wet continues to get signatures for a petition to end the harsh working conditions in prison. On the next day, Nikki and Frances came up with a plan to present their petition to an ambassador named Miller in hopes to get their message across. When Miller arrives at the workstation, Frances stands up and reads the demands that the inmates have and protests for better working conditions. The rest of the other inmates stand behind Francis on their demands. Nikki attempts to give Miller their petition, but Nelson snatches it from her and tries to calm him down. Nikki gets angry and Captain Deese attacks her from behind with a nightstick. Francis also ends up getting attacked from behind with a nightstick also. Both Nikki and Francis end up spending a week in solitary confinement. To keep themselves occupied, they did a lot of sit-ups and told each other stories. Captain Deese tried to tempt Nikki into snorting cocaine, but Francis was able to help her fight through the temptation. After their week was up, they were finally out of solitary confinement and were able to resume their daily routine. A little while later, Frances gets a visit from her sister and finds out that her daughter Maxine was killed by a stray bullet in a gang shootout 2 weeks ago. Frances was extremely devastated by this and was put on suicide watch. A few weeks had gone by and Frances returned from suicide watch. A little bit later, while the four of them were discussing their plans to get back at Captain Deese, Aisha wanted in on their plan because she wanted revenge on Captain Deese for beating on her. The four of them were hesitant at first, but they eventually came together to work on a plan. While Lil Mama was cleaning Captain Deese's office, Aisha came in and seduced him. Captain Deese dismissed Lil Mama from cleaning and turned off the surveillance camera. Lil Mama returned for a moment and pretended that she forgot to get her Bible. While getting her Bible back, she secretly turned the camera back on and Aisha makes it appear that Captain Deese was sexually assaulting her while on camera. After they caught the evidence on the surveillance tape, the five of them planned on giving the surveillance tape to the governor. While Lil Mama was cleaning Captain Deese's office and was trying to get the tape from the recorder, she was brutally raped by Captain Deese and suffered a miscarriage. Lil Mama was able to make her way back to Francis, Nikki, Wet, and Michael. They all rushed Lil Mama to the doctor. The doctor tries to save her, but Lil Mama unfortunately dies from her injuries. Francis, Nikki, and Wet were furious and upset over Lil Mama's death and took the doctor and Michael as hostages. Captain Deese hears a commotion and goes to see what's happening. Wet finds a gun inside a drawer and shoots Captain Deese in the shoulder as soon as he walks in. He attempts to shoot at Wet, but he ends up killing the doctor instead. Francis and Nikki attacked him and forced him onto the floor. They took all of his weapons and tied him up. They also let Michael go, and the remaining trio came up with a plan to call Nelson to demand that they speak to the government in exactly 1 hour. Nelson demanded that he spoke to Captain Deese to make sure he was still alive. The three of them dragged Captain Deese towards the phone and made him admit that he killed Lil Mama and the doctor. After they got his confession, Captain Deese tried to attack Francis, but Nikki shoots off of her. Both Nikki and Francis shoot him multiple times to finish him off. Nelson hears the whole thing through the phone call and hangs up. Wet goes outside to see what was going on, only to find out that the whole entire prison is surrounded by guards. She kills a guard that was above, and another guard comes from around the corner and shoots Wet in the chest. Francis and Nikki goes to get Wet and try to save her, but she ends up dying from her gunshot wound. With the entire prison surrounded, Francis and Nikki knew that they weren't gonna make it out alive. They decided to exit out of the building and were viciously gunned down by the guards. Meanwhile, Aisha managed to sneak into Captain D's office and retrieve the surveillance tape as originally planned. Thanks to Aisha, the female inmates were able to get a lawyer and file a lawsuit against the prison for their abuse and win the case. The prison ended up getting shut down, and Nelson ended up getting charged with serious offenses for his corrupt business deals and for exploiting the inmates. Shortly afterwards, Aisha ended up getting killed in a prison fight. Sabrina is now free from prison and dedicates the inmate's victory to all her fallen friends. She also plans on going back to Chicago to finish her book and stay out of jail for good. And that's the end of the movie, and here are my final thoughts. In my opinion, I feel like this movie is extremely underrated and it doesn't get talked about at all. The acting is in between being average and decent. The main characters were pretty likable. Clifton Powell, the one who played Captain Dees, was obviously the best actor of the whole movie, and as always, he did a very phenomenal job making you hate his guts throughout the whole movie. The ending of this movie kind of felt bittersweet in a way. It also felt kind of similar to Set It All when it came to the ending. If you know, you know. I also feel like this movie didn't have that much runtime and a big enough budget to show us more that goes on in female prison, because they only have 95 minutes of runtime to show us as much as they possibly could. I feel like if this movie had at least maybe 1 more hour of runtime, they probably would have been able to get their message across more. They also only had a $500,000 budget for this film, and the director of this film, her name is Nima Barnett. She wanted to make this movie to expose the prison industrial complex and how it affects inmates in prison. She also did a lot of research about female prisons. She even interviewed a lot of female prison inmates from LA and North Carolina. Nima also had the actresses go to a prison to research their roles. She also had a very hard time getting this movie approved because of its main concept, and they didn't want it to ruin the reputation of US prisons. This movie was originally supposed to be filmed in North Carolina, but the script for this movie was denied by North Carolina officials because they were afraid of the messages that this film depicted about the prison complex. So basically, in other words, they didn't want her to expose the whole entire prison system. Because of this, Nima was forced to tone down her entire script just so it could get approved. Now, just by hearing this, I feel like the original script for this movie was probably a billion times better than the one that was shown in the movie. I'm very curious about what the original script for this movie probably was, and it's probably never gonna see the light of day, unfortunately, because this movie came out more than 20 years ago. After Nima toned down her script, she sent it to the Tennessee officials and they approved of it, obviously. They also allowed filming for this movie to begin in December of the year 2000 in a Tennessee state penitentiary. During the filming of this movie, Nima had several production issues. They were originally supposed to have 30 days to film the movie, but they were later cut down to 15 days for some unknown reason. There were also a lot of scenes missing from this film that she never had the chance to film. This movie was also distributed by Lionsgate, and they only gave her and they only gave her 1 week to edit the film. To make the movie more fluid, Nima had the Brat, the one who plays Sabrina, to narrate more parts of the movie. Nima also had to use camera techniques to hide a lot of missing elements from the film. This also explains why the movie kind of felt rushed and unfinished. They were actively trying to sabotage the making of this movie because, number one, how in the hell are you gonna make a movie in just 2 weeks? Most movies take months and sometimes even 2 to 3 years to make, depending on what type of movie it is and how high the budget is. And number two, how the hell are you gonna edit a movie in just 1 week? Coming from somebody who edits videos like this, editing is hard as hell. And I'm pretty sure most content creators understand how hard editing truly is. Unless you're a pro-ass editor who's been doing it for a long-ass time, there's no way you can edit a movie in just 1 week. But yeah, they were actually trying to sabotage the hell out of this movie. After they did the best they could with this movie, it was finally released on May 26th in 2002 in certain movie theaters. This movie only made $254,293 at the box office, which is extremely terrible. The only reason why it did horrible at the box office is because there was no marketing and promotion for this movie. Despite how bad it did in the box office, it still managed to win 4 awards and 1 nomination. Nima Barnett, the director of this movie, received an award for Best Film, and Clifton Powell, the one who plays Captain Deese, received an award for Best Actor. Nima also won the Audience Award and the Special Jury Prize for this movie. Mos Def, the one who plays Michael in this movie, also won a nomination for Outstanding Actor in an Independent Film. Well, anyways guys, if you made it this far in this video, be sure to hit that like button, and if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss out on any of my videos. Oh, and one last thing, my next video is coming on this movie called Lockdown. This movie came out 2 years before Civil Brand, and this movie is way more gritty and darker compared to this one. So yeah, that's my video, and like I said, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notifications for new videos, and have a great New Year's Eve. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.
Yo, I ain't here for the money, I ain't here for the fame. Though it might be nice to own a jet.